Welcome in to this edition of the Oxford Exxon podcast. Chase Parham, Neal, McCready, Clark Ford at studio. We will speak with Jason Suchomel today. He's with orangebloods.com. We talked to Kerry Murdoch yesterday about Oklahoma. We'll get the Texas side of things to today as the league jumping to 16 teams. In case you haven't heard that, you've been under not just a rock, but like the boulder the size of like Mars or something here over the last week and a half, something like that. Frankly, it's only been a week, but it feels like 8 months at this point since that happened. But
we're going to talk to our friend Mr. Morales out at USC on Thursday. Just kind of continue the expansion talk.
Continue the expansion talk. We will not be speaking to anyone from Bucknuts next week. But anyway, that's that. So anyway, we'll do that coming up here on the show. A show brought to you every single day by the Oxford Exxon. Highway 6 West in Oxford, the Blue Sky. The first self-checkouts are in place now there at the Blue Sky. Probably coming to the rest of the stores across the state for Blue Sky, but right now in Oxford, you don't have to wait on anybody. You don't have to worry about lines or anything. Jump on over to self-checkout. Take care of what you want to in a convenience store that's clean, good prices, and more there. And while you're doing it, why don't you download the Speed Pass Plus app, take advantage of that, earn points, and save money with all Blue Sky locations in Mississippi. And again, coming from the Clark Ford studio.
And don't forget at Oxford Exxon, the new self checkout.
Yeah, I just said that.
Did you just say that? I'm sorry.
It's okay. Multitasking.
I was multitasking.
Well, I mean, look, it sounds like whatever for people, but when's the last time you actually got checked out by a human at like Kroger or somewhere?
Oh, I always check myself out.
No matter if I have too much stuff to actually self-checkout, I will still self-checkout. Because like a lot of times, sometimes like the lady helping, and I'm not blaming her, like she's doing her job, but she's like, hey, you good? Are you having a good day? You need help? And I'm like, no, just leave me alone. Just I got this. I'll click the little pictures for my bananas all day long.
Yeah,
and I'm good.
I actually enjoy checking myself out.
I mean, that's strong.
I do.
Why?
I don't know. I can see how fast I can do it. Or
do you race yourself?
No, not necessarily. Sometimes I will. Sometimes I want to see how organized I can be. I can bag it really well.
Like the fewest bags?
Or yeah, sure.
Okay.
And I'm listening to a podcast, kind of having my own.
You don't need that extra 5 minutes, like whatever. It's
No, I'm good.
And I'm not sure it even takes more time than waiting for somebody to check you out. I mean, they could check us out sooner than we can check ourselves out, but they're professionals.
If I have like beer or something where I know they got to enter the code. I'm getting their attention right off the bat. Hey, can you come do this now?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Instead of getting blindsided by it.
Where I have to hold up and wait. I'll either do that first or I do the beer last.
Okay. That's fair.
Someone says, I appreciate your affinity. As a former Oxford Kroger employee, I appreciate your affinity for the self-checkout.
Yeah, I don't understand the people that wait like 25 minutes at peak times for an actual line. Like that's a level of something that I just can't understand.
Or what I don't understand is sometimes half of the things are closed. The self-checkout's closed. Like, why would you close the self-checkout?
Well, now that makes no sense.
I mean, I'd open all those puppies up.
Because what different? Like, what are you worried about?
How much theft do you think happens on the self-checkout?
Oh, you think there's a lot?
I'm asking. I don't know. I mean, that's not my cup of tea. When I was a little boy, I stole a piece of caramel from the Safeway in Ruston.
Yeah.
And had to go give it back and apologize in person. And I'll never steal from a grocery store the rest of my existence.
That broke you right there.
It broke me, no question.
You had to give the caramel back.
I thought I was going to prison.
I mean, honestly, wouldn't it be hard to actually steal and get out?
I would think.
I mean,
I'm never going to be the hardened criminal.
Like, I remember, and this may be a thing at all grocery stores, and maybe I'm the only idiot that didn't know this before. Like, I know that at some places, when you're not using self-checkout, when you're using just a regular, if somebody walks by a checker and is like, have you seen Bob today or something? They mean bottom of basket, meaning somebody might have something on the bottom of the basket that they have not put up on the checkout. Yeah. I know that's a thing at some grocery stores and places. Is if somebody walks by and asks the checker if something about Bob, it's saying, "Hey, you've got something they're not putting up there yet."
How about that?
Yeah. Well, shorthand.
It's a whole world, man.
Oh. It's like, because I think people should be fined if they don't return their carts back to the little thing, too. There literally should be like, I would rather people get fined for that than speeding.
Those people are the worst people.
Or leave it in a parking spot. Like you think you've got one and they've got the cart they didn't replace just sitting in your parking spot.
Yeah, those are the worst people. I've told you my theory on this. You can judge the worthiness of a human being
by what they do with
their shopping cart at the grocery store.
Including somebody being too nice if they run it all the way back into the store or something. Like it goes all the way across the spectrum a little bit.
Probably. But you'd rather have too nice than the person that just has no regard. Just leave it. Where were we? Clark Ford. Yeah, I'm in the Clark Ford studio, 662-257-1900, 662-257-1900. Corey's got trucks. It's been a while since he's been able to say that he's got trucks, plural. He's got trucks. So get in touch. Things maybe the supply chain beginning to get rolling again, just in time for it to get shut back down again. So if you want a truck, interested in another Ford product, call, get a quote. He'll give you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours. Right to the bottom line, no hassle, no haggle. And the rest is up to you. We've told you about that for a while. Great service. People at Clark Ford are awesome. You'll love doing business with them as well. Jason Suchomel will join us on the Rafters Music and Food Hotline. Rafters on the Water open today at 5, tomorrow at 5, and then Saturday and Sunday at 11 a.m. Frozen margaritas, frozen daiquiris. My God, as hot as it is, you want frozen anything. I'd even ask for the frozen sandwich at this point. Just give me ice, please. All of that's at Rafters on the Water there at Sardis, and then don't forget Rafters on the Square in Oxford and Rafters, New Albany. Chase and I were talking about this then when he came in. He got up and ran. Would you say 5:48 this morning you ran?
Yeah, it was like no, before that. I started before 5. I was an idiot.
Well, I was getting ready to go at 7:30, and Jeffrey called, and I took Jeffrey's call, and I talked to Jeffrey for a little while, and then I was like, hey, I got to go. If I'm going to get this thing done, I'm going to do it. So I ran an hour and 2 minutes. I finished just before 9. I jumped into the pool with very little on.
Mm-hmm.
Turned on the water hose by the pool, waited till it got cold, and just poured it on top of me. Drank a water and a Gatorade, another water, took a cold shower, and was still sweating. It's like 1,000 degrees outside.
I mean, in all seriousness, as much as we're kind of joking about it, be careful if you're out. I mean, it's really bad right now. So we don't typically give public services on the heat, but in all honesty, if you're just even mowing the yard or something, don't be an idiot.
I had my timer going to see where I was, and I was like 56 minutes, and I kind of felt that. You know how you get that little cool sensation come over you?
It's not good.
And that's not good.
No, that's bad.
And my stomach was not where my stomach was upset, but I felt it.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, if you were running much further than this, you'd have to stop.
Yeah. We got Jason here in a few minutes. Frankly, not a ton of news for once. It's kind of the first day in a week or so that hasn't had a ton of stuff go on between yesterday and today. I saw here somebody asking about Kumar Rocker. The Mets have said that he did not pass his physical with flying colors. They are trying to decide what to do. Deadline obviously getting fairly close here. Look, I still expect Kumar Rocker to sign. I think that unless they really try to lowball him around $4 million, a little less than that. I talked to a couple people yesterday just out of my own curiosity, and I think he will sign unless it gets below that. Here's a couple things. The Mets are being cheap because, frankly, Tommy John doesn't scare anyone off at this point to the point that you don't sign a top 10 pick. If you don't sign Kumar Rocker, they would get a compensation pick in next year's draft for the number 11 overall pick. They would, however, lose that money out of their bonus pool for this year, the amount that could be given to the top 10 picks. But look, I still expect him to sign. I mean, it makes sense for both parties. It is the Mets being cheap a little bit. It's that him having some damage to a certain extent. But look, here's the catch on that. There is damage in every major pitcher's elbow to some extent. Now, look, is there a line of demarcation that makes it a bigger deal than whatever? Sure, no doubt. I mean, Gunnar Hoagland had some issues coming out of high school in his elbow. Kumar Rocker has issues now coming out of his elbow. But any pitcher that is pitched at that level for that period of time is going to have some microscopic issues in their elbow. So there is no such thing as a clean elbow when it comes to a college pitcher at that level. But this is strictly, to me, I don't even necessarily mind the bargaining and the being whatever, but if something goes wrong, it is 100% on the Mets and evidence of what the Mets franchise has been for a good bit of the last 2 decades. I still expect Kumar Rocker to be wherever their high A team is here in a few weeks.
I think so too. I think they're just playing games. Why you do that with a guy that has a chance to be a face of your franchise is beyond me. Just pay him.
If he needs the surgery, give him the surgery. This is not complicated
at all.
They are not scared off by Tommy John anymore. Anything that you act like you're scared by Tommy John means you're a PR stunt, right?
Just means it's a year.
Yeah. Okay. Because at 11 next year, you're not going to get a better prospect than you got Kumar Rocker at whatever pick they had this year.
No.
Not a chance in whatever.
And you're going to risk letting him hang out for a year?
Yeah, I've heard nothing about what actual pods will look like. That part's kind of going quiet. I mean, frankly, Neal made me right. I think this thing could just start as divisions for a little while, and then they go from there. I don't know. Is there any scuttlebutt?
Not that I've really heard. Not enough to really believe it. Media people making up pods.
Because it's easy and clicks. And
it's late July.
Hey, here's what it could look like. Well, okay.
I mean, I'm not 1,000% convinced there's ever a 16-team league.
That it goes on to 18 or 20 or 32 before next year.
I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, if you maybe bet, hey, are they ever going to play a 16-team league? I'm like, I think so. But I mean, are you confident? No, I'm not confident. Are you betting a lot of money on it? I'm absolutely not. No chance. I don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of buzz out there. It won't go away. And I've learned in this, you don't ignore that. When everybody keeps talking about Pac-12 being upset, teams in the Pac-12 being upset, when people talk about different teams in the Big Ten being upset, when people talk about teams in the ACC looking around and going, what are we going to do in 6 years? I don't know. They look at the amount of money that
everybody gets a little upset when they see the money passing around between the teams that are actually in these conferences.
Yeah.
That's part of what's happening. Hey, I'm pretty pissed off. Yeah, I'm upset.
Well, they look at the numbers that the SEC schools are going to make. Hey, how are we going to make that? Well, right now we have no plan to make that.
You're not, is the question.
And so some of these schools that think, well, we're big enough to make that, right? And
because it's up to the schools to find landing spots in one of these two conferences, the Big Ten or the SEC, because part of the problem is everybody goes, well, I mean, the Pac-12 will grab so-and-so and the ACC will grab so-and-so. Well, if there were not, I guess my point here is there aren't schools to increase and to create that type of revenue. You can't just add whomever and suddenly make $57 million a year or whatever the number is.
No,
I mean, the Pac-12 doesn't go, hey, we've got Texas Tech, now pay me SEC money. It doesn't work like that.
Well, that's why when people keep doing this thing about, what do you think about adding this, I'm like, you're not listening. Things leak for a reason, Chase. Why did that leak yesterday about the SEC and the way that the pie works?
Mm-hmm. About how it's all pro rata.
Why do you stop everybody for a minute and think, that leaked yesterday. Wonder why? Well, reason one is the Pac-12 was meeting that day. Reason two is that some schools have inquired. And the SEC kind of leaked it to some media. Hey, here's how our deal's structured, just so you know. So you're right when you talk about the pie. It's a really big pie, lots of green filling. But what we can do is we can make the pie bigger.
Yeah.
So if your portion of it is...
If we invite SC to the picnic, suddenly there's more pie.
If we invite SC to the picnic, we're not going to run out of burgers. We have new burgers that show up. Yeah. As long as ESPN's like, yeah, they can come to the picnic.
Yeah. Yeah. The grill's big enough.
That leaked yesterday for a reason.
It's all leaked for a reason. It wasn't just
course.
happenstance. The Houston Chronicle went 5 minutes before Jimbo was up on the podium.
It's when you watch, like, okay, the NBA draft is
Because
tomorrow night.
somebody on a message board for A&M goes, God, how unlucky were we? We were right there when this broke.
The NBA draft is tomorrow night.
It's 1-on-1, by the way.
Okay, the Major League Baseball, I'm about to call it Major League Baseball trade deadline is Friday. Watch the leaks. The leaks happen for a reason. It's usually not just the enterprise reporter stumbling on something. You have connections, and someone leaks something to you.
Neal calling Jason Suchomel of orangebloods.com here currently.
Yep.
We got a lot of props on Kerry yesterday. That was
Yeah,
the most we've had for a guest in a while.
A lot of pressure on Jason here.
Is he aware of that?
I told him that Kerry was on. I didn't tell him, hey, you've got pressure coming your way, but
Okay.
I think he probably knows.
He probably likes Dr. Pepper.
We can find out.
He's from Texas. How often in your radio days did the person not answer?
That's frequent.
Was it pretty frequent?
Hey, Neal.
Hey, Jason, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. You're on live with Chase and myself, Jason Suchomel, orangebloods.com, here on the big podcast. How are you?
I'm good. How you? Hey, Chase, how are you doing, man? Good to talk to you guys.
Yeah, I'm good, Jason. We were just talking. No pressure or anything, but Kerry got a lot of compliments yesterday. Everybody was really kind of raving about him. So I've got to up your game a little today.
I'll try to hold up my end of the bargain.
Yeah,
so. But Murdoch's an old pro at this, though. So.
We'll start with where we started with him. What are your thoughts on Dr. Pepper?
He was hating on Dr. Pepper yesterday.
well, good, because hopefully those are where the compliments came in, because I am not a Dr. Pepper fan. I've got daughters who drink that stuff religiously, but I've just never been a fan. Give me good old-fashioned Coca-Cola for me.
Okay, fair enough.
So we'll stick with the same pattern that we had yesterday. Take us through your last Wednesday about a week ago. How prepared for that were you? How much of that had you heard? Were you completely taken back? Were you shocked? And then what was sort of the reaction on your site from Texas fans?
Yeah, to answer the first part of that, I was completely taken back by it, and that's honestly one of the bigger surprises to me is how quiet everybody was able to keep this. And I don't think it was any coincidence that it leaked.
Lost him there for a second.
Chronicle.
There he is. There he is. Go ahead. I'm sorry. You don't think it's a coincidence we lost you for a second? All right. I'm going to try to reconnect. Don't you think?
Yeah, sure. Why not? We have a minute.
I'll get him back on. It happens.
Yeah, we don't have a ton of. My mother used to drink Tab way back in the day. I don't know if it tastes kind of like flat soda, right? Doesn't
I haven't had a Tab since I was 10 years old.
Well, I mean.
You there with us
Neal,
now?
can you hear me okay?
Yeah, that's better. We lost you there. Sorry. Can you hear us, Jason? Don't think we have the best connection in the world.
I don't even know.
There he is.
I'm going to go to a different part of my home, and hopefully I can hear you. But
Okay, yeah, you're starting to sound better already. We completely lost you there for a few seconds.
Hear me now, Neal?
Yeah, we hear you, but there's an accusation that Texags is breaking up your phone line, and that's certainly possible.
No, I don't think it's Texas, but I wouldn't put it.
Can you Skype his actual number in this system?
Yeah, I'll Skype it. Text him and tell him that's what I'm doing.
Okay. You're getting kind of the sausage-made version of what's going on at the moment?
Yep, it happens. Let's see.
Hopefully he has the same number.
You're saying to Skype the actual number, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. That way it takes the internet off his side. We try, Chet. We really try to please you every day. We're doing this. We could get Ross on, do a little three-way.
I could get Andy Kennedy on right now and make Chet really happy.
Good.
Chase.
Yeah, I think we took the internet off your side now, so I think we're good. We just called the regular number. So.
Okay. Can you hear me then?
Yeah, we're all good now.
So you were talking about just kind of how you found out, you were shocked, and then go from there. We lost you completely.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what's going on with my reception here, but not off to a great start. But yeah, I was caught by surprise. I think pretty much all of us around here were. The news broke from the Houston Chronicle. It was an A&M kind of beat reporter for the Houston Chronicle that broke the story on Wednesday. And of course, it comes out right as Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M are about to take the podium at SEC Media Day. So the timing of all that, I don't think was a coincidence by any means. I don't think who broke the story was a coincidence by any means. But it was, for lack of a better description, it kind of caught everybody around here with our pants down, because nobody I know, even after the fact, I haven't talked to anybody. Usually people will come out and say, oh, yeah, I kind of had heard some rumblings about this, or I'd heard that was a possibility. But, this, I think, caught everybody completely off guard. And like you said, it was last Wednesday, 1 week ago. It feels like it's been months, but since the story first broke. But, yeah, it was completely unexpected. I think we're all still kind of trying to wrap our heads around it, and obviously trying to figure out where it's going to go from here, how quickly are things going to move. But huge storyline, and one of the bigger surprises to me in this whole thing is just how Texas and Oklahoma and the SEC and everybody just kept it under wraps and kept the story from leaking until, like I said, at the very last minute. And I don't think the way it leaked was any coincidence by any means.
Yeah, Greg Sankey proving to be quite the assassin over the last few weeks and months. All right, so the SEC presidents are going to meet tomorrow, and they're going to give it the 14-0 or 13-1 vote. It'll be 14-0. And then Texas is going to meet their board of trustees or supervisors or regents or whatever they call it. Oklahoma's people are going to do the same thing. What do you anticipate from there? How quickly, in your opinion, what are you hearing there in Austin about how quickly Texas and Oklahoma are actually in the SEC?
That's the million-dollar question that nobody seems to have a clear answer for. Like you said, SEC will meet Thursday, Texas and Oklahoma will meet Friday. I think everybody's just going to kind of rubber stamp this, and it'll get approved on both sides very quickly. There's so much red tape that needs to be figured out in terms of TV contracts and money owed to the schools. And if they leave early, where's that money going to come from to pay those debts, so to speak? But my best guess, Texas and Oklahoma's last year in the Big 12. I think it's going to be 2022. We've heard that Texas has the money to pay off whatever they need to pay off if they leave. Their TV rights with the Big 12 don't end until 2025. We've heard Texas has the money. They'll ante up the money to cover that debt. They're willing to forego the Longhorn Network, we've been told, if that's what's absolutely necessary. That's $15 million a year. I think it's going to be 2022. And I think what we're hearing about Texas and Oklahoma, they're hoping that essentially the Big 12 is going to dissolve before, like I said, their current contract with Fox Sports is up in 2025. But if Texas and Oklahoma, if everything goes through like we fully expect it to, everybody does this week, they're kind of hoping the Big 12 dissolves pretty quickly after that, where some of this TV contract stuff isn't an issue. I think worst case scenario or the slowest case scenario, you're talking 2025, but I don't really think that's a realistic option. We're kind of talking to you down here, and nobody seems to know for sure, but the general vibe seems to be 2022. So this might be Texas's last year in the Big 12, which will make for some pretty interesting road trips in the fall. In Texas, they've got to go to Waco. They've got to go to TCU. They go to Iowa State. Iowa State will have a good team this year. And hopefully they don't have to go to Lubbock. Those are most Texas fans would tell you those are probably the fans in the conference in terms of when Texas hits the road. But I've made the joke, hey, these Texas players may want to wear Kevlar vests under their shoulder pads when they hit the road, because if it's true that the conference does dissolve, if the Big 12 does dissolve after this year, which again, that's what I'm expecting. There's a lot of those teams I just mentioned are going to be scrambling to find some of them land.
Yeah. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because I want to get to some other things, but I have to ask you, because you've covered that league for a while and you're familiar with all those programs. What do you see happening with what's left of the league, those other 8 teams?
Yeah, well, I don't think anybody knows. I've read reports that Texas Tech has talked to the Pac-12, and some of these other schools have put in calls. You hear about Kansas and the Big Ten possibly, but who even knows if the Big Ten and what's going to happen with the Big Ten and the Pac-12? Bob Bowlesby, the Big 12 commissioner, kind of said this week about he said, hey, they're still committed to the 8 schools that are remaining, and well, that sounds well and good, but a conference that's headed up by Oklahoma State and Texas Tech and TCU, and Baylor just did win a basketball national championship. But there's no long-term solution for a Big 12 conference without Texas and Oklahoma. I've heard speculation, hey, they could go out and try to get the Houstons of the world and maybe try to still form their conference, but that's just not going to hold up against, what the SEC is building and whatever happens with the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and the ACC. So, where those schools that's one of the, kind of the side of this that people don't think about. Texas fans, listen, unanimously are thrilled and excited about what's going on, but you take a step back and you look at kind of the traditions and the rivalries with some of these other schools. I don't know what happens to a Baylor. I don't know what happens to a TCU if they try to go to the Mountain West or something like that. What's a school like Kansas State going to do? I can't imagine anybody's, with all due respect to Kansas State, nobody's going to be beating down the door to get a school like Kansas State into their conference, or, Iowa State may have a shot with the Big Ten. I don't know. So, I don't know. Those schools I know are left scrambling. There's a lot of animosity against Texas and Oklahoma, as what I think is certainly understandable. But, those schools, I don't think there's a true answer for that right now. I think those schools are going to be scrambling, and frankly, they're probably going to have to take whatever they can get, and it may not be the best of options for them.
Yeah, it's about adding Houston and stuff. There's no sex appeal to that whatsoever. There's nothing about that that's appealing to TV people. I was talking to Carrie.
You're basically becoming the Mountain West of the state of Texas almost.
Yeah, even if that. Yeah,
really, probably.
Yeah, I was talking to Carrie. There was a list yesterday that was done. I can't remember who did it. I sent it to myself somewhere, but it's lost in the ether. It was about the top 10 or top 20 Big 12 television events over the last, I want to say it was 5-6 years. And all but one, literally all but one, involved Texas or Oklahoma, and most of them involved Texas and Oklahoma. But, I think it was Ohio State TCU in 2018 got a huge number and, had a national splash from a rating standpoint where, TVs were on and it registered in a lot of markets. But other than that, it was Texas playing someone or Oklahoma playing someone. And as I said, it was Texas and Oklahoma playing each other. And outside of those two teams, there's just nothing in that league that has any appeal. And that's why I got to be honest, I'm surprised it took as long as it did for us to get to this place. We've talked about this on this show. I think you and I have talked about this before. I've always just thought Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC was going to happen at the end of the 2025 season. I just figured that's when it would happen. But I would always say, once you get to a place where that the divorce is coming, you usually don't stay together that much longer. And here we are. You talked about the fans being excited. What impact is this going to have on the Texas program? Obviously, they're going to step up in competition quite a bit. But they're with Sarkisian, they're trying to recruit at a really high level, all of that stuff. What's been the reaction inside the program about what's coming?
Well, I think everybody's excited based on the people we've talked to. Everybody's still pretty mum about it, obviously, until things are finalized. But if you just kind of talk to people and get the scuttlebutt inside the the football program. Certainly everybody's excited. They feel like this will increase their chances to be competitive, and certainly in the recruiting world. I mean, this is some ammunition that Texas can use. You mentioned Sarkisian and the new staff trying to recruit at a pretty high level. I mean, this is recruiting in the Big 12 has been a hurdle. I mean, and I think Tom Herman and his staff and Charlie Strong even before them, if you were to talk to those guys off the record, they would tell you, hey, it was a hurdle recruiting in the Big 12 for whatever reason, offensive linemen and defensive linemen in particular. You know, they just those guys. So I think there's excitement in the Texas program. Open competition. So, hey, this is a Texas program that hasn't won a Big 12 championship in more than a decade. They've only won 3 in the history of the Big 12. They haven't even played in that many Big 12 championships. They weren't favored to play or not favored to play in the Big 12 championship this year. Most people are picking an Oklahoma-Iowa State battle, and I'm not saying Texas can't get there this year, but, you know, this is a Texas program that everybody knows is a sleeping giant, and sometimes Texas fans tend to forget the sleeping part of that. Okay, they really, I mean, Texas is still a giant, but it's a giant that's been asleep for a while. So, you know, I think Texas under Steve Sarkisian needs to start off this season, the first season. They got to start strong. They can't come out and go, you know, 6-6 this year, and then you're entering SEC play with very little momentum. And if you're not competitive in the SEC, boy, the wheels could then fall off pretty quickly. So, yeah, this is a big year for Texas, but I think everybody's excited. I mentioned the fans are excited, even the old throwback fans who still remember the days of the Southwest Conference and still kind of remember those days fondly. I haven't talked to a single person. I haven't seen a single person on our website, on our message board, that isn't just over the moon about this move to the SEC. But, you know, I've heard some, and that's the local feel in Austin. But you hear some national people saying, hey, be careful what you wish for, man. It's, you know, it's tough sledding in the SEC, and I think Texas fans need to remember that aspect of it. I wrote a column this week, just kind of talked to a bunch of recruits, and everybody's really excited. All these recruits are excited. They're saying, I mean, the SEC, I'm going to Texas, and, you know, that's all well and good, but Texas has to hold up its end of the bargain in terms of playing well on the field. If you go to the SEC and you're not able to match up and you're a bottom feeder in that conference, that's going to be a tough hole to dig out of. So everybody's excited. I think everybody in the football department, you know, if you probably went, you know, office to office and asked them, you know, door to door and said, hey, what are your feelings? I don't think you'd hear a negative word about it. But, you know, Texas does have to up its game on the field, or frankly, you know, a lot of the stuff is not going to matter.
Texas A&M obviously is past Texas for right now, at least. When you look at it, you're inside that state. How far behind A&M is Texas in terms of talent, in terms of where the program is, in terms of you know, recruiting prowess inside the state? Is it close at all, or do the Longhorns have a lot of ground to make up?
No, I think it's close, and it's funny to hear that, because I think, you know, most Texas fans would probably say, "Oh, we're not behind A&M," you know. But I mean, if you're looking at it objectively, you know what Jimbo Fisher did last year, they finished top 5 in the country. They've had, I think, consecutive recruiting classes that have ranked right around that top 5. Texas A&M has.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you're an objective Texas fan, you have to be able to admit, hey, A&M is out in front right now, and Texas is playing catch up. I think there's reason for optimism. I mean, with Steve Sarkisian, I think Texas needed a coaching change. Tom Herman obviously wasn't getting the job done on the field consistently. Texas wasn't recruiting terribly well in Herman's last couple of years. Now, where there is hope, you know, and reason for optimism for Texas is that Tom Herman's first 2 years, Texas had those top 5 recruiting classes. So there is talent on the roster, and it should be upperclassmen talent. But this is a Texas team that's going to be breaking in a new quarterback this year. They're going to have a young offensive line. They've got a lot of holes they're having to fill on defense. I mean, it's not a Texas roster. In fact, it had 2 projected first-team all Big 12 members on this Texas roster. So this is not a Texas team that's just littered with, you know, first-round talent or high-end talent all over the field. So there's ground to be made up. I think it can happen pretty quickly. I mean, it just takes, I wouldn't even say one. I was going to say it takes one good season for Texas to kind of catch lightning in a bottle. Texas is that kind of program. they turn in a good season, go to the Big 12 championship game, things can take off. I don't even know that they need, under Coach Sark, I don't know that they need one good season. If they start the season off this year with wins against, they go up to Arkansas, that's not going to be an easy game. Obviously they play Oklahoma in October. I mean, if Texas can start the season 4-0, which is going to be a tough chore, but if they can do that, this is a Texas program, again, it's a sleeping giant that I think that can wake up pretty quickly and snap out of the slumber pretty quickly. But, hey, the proof's in the pudding, man. I mean, everybody looks at this thing and says, hey, can Texas start the season going 4-0? They've got a pretty good Louisiana team that was, a lot of people have ranked in the top 20 coming to Austin to start the season. They go to Arkansas.
Lafayette, Jason. It's Louisiana Lafayette. It's not Louisiana. It's Louisiana Lafayette. You got to get it right.
You're speaking to a ULM alum over here, so he gets a little.
I mean, if we're talking about the University of Louisiana, we're going to have a debate. So, I mean, it's just Louisiana Lafayette, and just let it be.
Well, okay, Louisiana Lafayette. We'll go with that. But yeah, so and that's a good program. Listen, I mean, I think Texas fans are taking that game for granted. And listen, Texas fans and anybody outside of Austin probably knows this. Texas fans tend to take a lot of things for granted. I said it. I keep using the term "sleeping giant," but it is. It's a program that's been pretty mediocre for a long time. Now, I'm talking about, hey, can Texas start the season 4-0? And then I mentioned the Oklahoma game in early October. I think it's just as likely this Texas team starts 2-2 as it does starts 4-0. I mean, 1-3 isn't out of the question even for this Texas team. So, back to your original point, they are behind A&M. I think they can catch up quickly, but they've got to start showing some kind of progress on the field. And it's kind of like with recruiting. I cover recruiting pretty heavily, and these Texas fans are getting kind of frustrated in recruiting because they've missed out on a couple guys. They lost on a couple offensive linemen who committed to Oregon, guys who were top Texas targets that they really wanted. And they ended up committing to Oregon. This was back in early July. And Texas fans on our website are having a hard time comprehending that. Like, how is Texas losing Texas kids from the state of Texas, to Oregon? And my answer to that is, hey, guys, Texas really hasn't been what you all think they are for most of these kids' lives. I mean, these kids haven't seen Texas win a conference championship since they were barely in grade school. And frankly, a lot of kids in the state of Texas, a lot of recruits, I mean, Texas is always going to get on recruits' radars, but recruits are kind of done giving Texas the benefit of the doubt. Okay? And Tom Herman got that in his first couple of years. Charlie Strong got it his first couple of years. Steve Sarkisian and his staff really aren't getting that benefit of the doubt. Now, they're recruiting well, but when these recruits look at it and say, hey, I've got A&M who they proved it last year. I've got Oklahoma doing what Oklahoma does. And LSU, had a national championship a couple of years, and Ohio State and Alabama recruit the state pretty heavily. So there's a lot of attractive options out there. I think Texas can get this thing on the rails. But bottom line is, man, Sark's got to do what Tom Herman and Charlie Strong weren't able to do. He's got to take that talent. They've recruited well. The talent supposedly should be there if you're basing it off the recruiting numbers. He's got to find a way to maximize that talent and do what Tom Herman and Strong didn't do and produce consistent wins with this group.
Last thing, what are you hearing about Arch Manning in Austin, and how, if at all, does Texas joining the SEC impact that recruiting, in your opinion?
That's funny. With Arch, you can talk to as many sources in Austin as you want, and nobody wants to say much about Arch. I think everybody's so guarded on that one. I can tell you kind of what now Arch is going to be at Ole Miss this weekend, correct?
He was here Monday.
It was okay. He's already been. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
right. Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's of course I saw that on Twitter. But he did visit Texas in June. Obviously, he's been to Clemson, a couple other places. I would say there's a quiet confidence in Austin. There's just a lot of pieces that seem to fit. Texas doesn't have a stacked quarterback depth chart. They've got a good one committed in this 2022 class. Malik Murphy's a quarterback out of California, but he's kind of what I would call a developmental prospect. He's got the tools, but I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to scare Arch Manning away. They don't have an established depth chart. Steve Sarkisian, I think, is going to be an attractive draw. We've heard the family really likes, Sark's reputation as an offensive mind, of course. back in the day, some people will tell you that Eli Manning almost wound up at Texas. They ended up getting Chris Sims in that same class, so that one kind of fell apart. So I think there's a confidence in Texas. He's really the quarterback in that class that Texas is actively recruiting. But listen, you got Ole Miss. Obviously, is going to be a player there. Alabama, Clemson. This is going to be a real dogfight. But I think Texas feels pretty good about its position right now. But I don't think anybody truly knows. You all know it as well as anybody. Arch, they're good at playing the game. They're not going to tip their hand too much. Everybody I talk to just says, hey, it's kind of a guessing game right now. You try to read the tea leaves as much as you can. But getting him on campus was a big deal. We did hear kind of behind this from people close to Arch that they really enjoyed their time in Austin. It was a 2-day visit. They were in Austin for the entire weekend. So I think there's still some moving parts in that one. Texas is still chasing some heavy hitters in the 2022 class that could potentially impact Arch's thinking. I think Texas feels pretty confident there. I wouldn't say anybody in the UC football offices or anywhere else is going to say, hey, Texas is an outright leader for Arch Manning. But I do feel like Texas is in striking distance, and I think the staff feels the same way.
Jason, really appreciate the time. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Okay, guys. Hey, thanks for having me.
Be good. That was Jason Suchomel, orangebloods.com, part of the Rivals Network.
Texas in a weird spot, frankly, joining the league a little bit because their actual team is not up to par to do what their program expects, what their donors expect. Just like the Big 12, except even worse, because in some ways, in the Big 12, they were almost able to not hide or avoid or anything like that, but you could kind of have so many off weeks where you're just going to win games because of who you were playing, and that schedule's not as deep to where the floor was higher than maybe the talent level on Texas or the production or whatever you want to call it justified a little bit. And not to have the SEC is whatever, but the SEC is for damn sure deeper than the Big 12. You get in the West and get that division rolling a certain way. Texas doesn't get those kind of off weeks a little bit. There isn't the Kansas if the schedule goes a certain way. I think there might be a little early unrest there whenever Texas joins the league more than maybe we or maybe more than they're anticipating. It could make for some pretty high comedy a little bit because frankly their team right now is just very, very average. It's not much more than that, and I think it's going to create some perception reality issues potentially in this league.
So I'm pulling up Texas's schedule this year. You talk about a culture shock coming their way.
Yeah.
Jason mentioned they open with Louisiana Lafayette. They have an 89.1% chance of winning that game according to ESPN FPI. And boy, that feels high, doesn't it? Because Napier's got a good team. They go to Arkansas.
Napier knocked off, was it Iowa State last year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. At Arkansas, they have a 70.6% chance of winning there. And frankly, I think that's high. They get Rice, and then Texas Tech, at TCU, Oklahoma and Dallas, Oklahoma State, Baylor, at Iowa State, Kansas, West Virginia, Kansas State. ESPN has them going 10-2. Gives them a 0.4% chance of going undefeated, a 13.6% chance of winning the Big 12.
There's a bunch of toss-up games.
Yeah.
If you told me they struck gold and went 10-2, I wouldn't be stunned.
The toss-up games, anything from 40 to 60, is TCU and West Virginia.
And then gives them 2 losses.
Yeah, that would give them 2 losses. They have a 28.2% chance of beating Oklahoma, 42.7% chance of beating Iowa State.
Okay.
That schedule's a cupcake compared to whatever they get in the SEC.
That's my point.
Where you get Texas A&M,
well, and
LSU.
you get beat up on back-to-back weeks too.
It's the part that nobody gets.
Yeah, you get the breather and whatever, but you could get that bad 3-week stretch in the SEC where it's Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and you're like, God, like you get done with it, and then all of a sudden you lose to State or Tennessee or somebody because you're all beat to hell. I mean, it just.
Well, you look at Ole Miss, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, Ole Miss has that stretch in October where they play LSU at home, where I think there's a decent chance Ole Miss is 5-1 with LSU coming here.
Yeah.
And it's just a circus.
Yeah.
They retired Eli's number and Arch's
That's
here.
bonkers of a week.
The whole deal, and you go bonkers, and I think you could win.
Yeah, sure.
And then you turn around on Sunday morning, and you're like, hey, we got to go to Auburn in 6 days.
Yeah.
That's what you don't get in that league.
Mm-hmm.
That you get in this league all the damn time. Like LSU's got this stretch where they've got – Chris Landry says they're going to win them all easy, but they've got this stretch where it's Florida, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Auburn. I don't think I have that in the exact order, but it's just boom, 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 boom. And I mean, like when LSU goes to Kentucky, I think there's a real chance Kentucky's 4-0. What do you think Lexington will be like that day if that happened? Crazy. You go up there to be nuts. And then a week later, you got Florida, who's, in my scenario, kind of licking their wounds from losing to Kentucky, and they're pissed off, and they hate LSU anyway. Then you have the aforementioned game in Oxford. Then you turn around and you come home, and here comes somebody.
Yeah.
That's the league. I mean, if I told you Ole Miss beats LSU at home and then is kind of flat and can't get up for Auburn and loses to Auburn, are you not even a little surprised? You're like, yeah, that's the SEC. That's what you don't get in the Big 12.
Yeah, I think I would be willing to take ULL plus 10 in Austin. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Give me 10, I'll take it.
I mean, Napier's doing a really good job there. I mean, all the ULL jokes aside.
I mean, I don't know if he's being smart, not smart. I don't know. That's up for somebody else to decide. But he is very confident he can continue winning to stay on the top of the list for whenever he does want to take a jump out of that place. And here's the novel thing. I think he's pretty happy. Making money.
He's making a little over 2.
I mean, in Lafayette.
In Lafayette, Louisiana.
Live wherever you want.
All the job security he could ever want. It's not a terrible place to live. It's hotter than hell, but
it's a swamp.
It is a swamp. But, there's players. LSU can't get them all.
And you rule that second tier. You're going to get the kid over Monroe. You're going to get the kid over whomever.
Of course.
I mean,
yeah.
You might lose one to La Tech occasionally. But.
And it'll be a great transfer destination. Yeah. The kid that goes to LSU and realizes, hey, I'm not quite good enough to play like I thought.
Be happy to go to La Tech.
But I can come to Lafayette and be the number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah.
They'll get kids like that in spades.
Mm-hmm.
Kid that starts his career at Mississippi State, doesn't quite work out. He's the 4th linebacker there, but he's the 2nd linebacker at ULL.
Yeah. Completely off topic. Did you see any update on Bob Odenkirk today? Was anything?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You missed him?
Yeah.
Bob Odenkirk, Saul, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul.
Mm-hmm.
He collapsed on set last night, and we've seen literally no medical updates whatsoever since then. Yeah, he was filming season 6 of Better Call Saul sometime last night. I'm not sure exactly what time, and he collapsed on set. They had to bring an ambulance in to get him, and there's been literally no public update to his condition.
Oh, wow.
Bryan Cranston this morning just simply said that he was still receiving medical attention and that nothing was public. So, but it's so weird to me because these things always leak on whatever's going on and what's wrong, and I mean nothing. It is stone silent. I mean, TMZ is like quoting Instagram post. That's not what TMZ does.
So they can't get anything,
no,
which is probably not a good sign.
They broke the news yesterday when it happened, but there have been zero updates as to what's wrong, how, nothing. And the dude was in was in the best shape of his life because he was like an action star in a movie within the last year or so. I mean, he had really gotten kind of ripped and fit. But I know nothing about what his deal is.
No, I've not heard anything about that.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't keep up with TMZ as much as you.
Can't say I keep up with TMZ very often, but they still have like that 30-minute TV show on at night where they like run through all the stuff.
I don't know.
Corolla told me, just me. He used to have on his podcast that he would jump rope during TMZ. Was he loved like the mindless, stupid 30-minute entertainment, and that's when he would like get his workout in, and he would like jump rope for that 30 minutes or whatever.
How much Corolla do you listen to?
Not as much now.
Yeah.
It really depends on what else I've got in the podcast chamber, because I know it's always there if I need it. I will, but I've gotten bad about, because I guess we get down a little podcast rabbit hole. Since he got hooked up with Podcast One, I feel like he's doing a lot more promotional interviews with other people that are on Podcast One.
Yeah.
And they don't really interest me very much. So I found myself reading the info a whole lot more about, hey, do I want to do this? Like, okay, they're doing the Rotten Tomatoes game, so let me click over there and I'll listen to the 20 minutes for the Rotten Tomatoes game. And then I'll listen to his monologue, kind of open the show, and I'll kind of click around. So if I know I'm doing something where I need a longer podcast, I'll still listen, but I'm nowhere near the daily dedicated listener that I was a year or 2 years ago. And I think it's because I don't like his guest. Frankly, I'd rather just him talk. When he starts getting a little too guest-centric, I start losing interest.
That's why I like Reasonable Doubt.
Yeah.
I'll listen to
That's just him and Garagos.
Yeah, I'll listen to him and Dr. Drew. And I like it when he just talks. Because I catch myself agreeing with Carolla a lot. Or I'm intrigued by Carolla's thoughts a lot.
Yeah. At minimum makes you think. Sure.
Yeah. It's thought-provoking, which is what you want. I've been listening to 1865 Season 2.
Oh, there's a Season 2.
Yeah.
What are we doing now?
It focuses on Ulysses S. Grant.
Okay.
It's really good.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's good. It's amazing how history repeats itself.
Oh.
The correlations between...
To the average person, Grant's still known more as general, not president, right?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. I've never really asked the average person. So, Ulysses S. Grant, what do you think?
But I feel like so. I feel like I would say, like I said, if we're doing word association, and they said Ulysses S. Grant, I think I would say general, not president.
He was a 2-term president.
Yeah, but I don't think that would be my answer. Maybe I'm weird.
One of the most underrated Americans.
Grant,
for sure. I mean, nobody ever talks about
Is he
Grant.
Underrated?
Yeah, because people always do like Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln.
Oh man,
Grant probably belongs in that category.
In that pantheon.
Yeah, for sure.
So 10 Americans you're considering Ulysses S. Grant.
Yes.
5?
In the mix.
That impactful?
For sure. Held the country together.
As president, yeah.
As president, sure. Yeah, in many ways finished the job that Abraham Lincoln was started.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Because I don't think, and you probably scold me on this one. It's when I don't think I listened to the Wicked Game with him. I don't think I did, because I was skipping around. I wasn't going all the way through the anthology like you did.
So they added it as a bonus to 1865 Season 2.
Okay.
And made it fit, and it was really good.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like when I was working in Birmingham in media days, I had that on my.
That's what you were listening to?
In the hotel when I was writing.
Yeah,
I had that on, yeah. I'm super weird. I mean, I just get weirder by the day, but yeah. I thought it was really interesting. I listened to it all the way to Birmingham. It was really good.
How many episodes?
I don't know. I'm halfway through it, I think. So it says you take him for granted.
Do what?
You take him for granted. I can't list the presidents in order, can you? There was a day that I could, but I can't.
No.
I can't anymore.
I'm not even sure how far I could get going reverse. I mean, like,
Let's see. Let me see if I can do it.
let me pull it up, see if you're right.
All right.
I mean, what else are we doing? It's the season has not gotten here yet, guys. This is prime.
Well, you said you
example.
really wanted to get into this Simone Biles thing.
I
You
don't
really wanted
know.
to dive into that.
I have zero interest. No, I refuse to talk about it.
All right, so it's Biden.
In reverse order.
In reverse order. Biden, Trump,
Yeah.
Obama,
Yep.
Bush,
Yeah.
Clinton, Bush,
I mean, I don't expect you to lose yet. So.
Reagan,
Yep.
Ford.
Nope. Oh, okay, I beat you then. I'm still going.
Oh, yeah. Reagan, Carter,
Yeah.
Ford,
Yep.
Nixon,
Yep.
Johnson,
Yep.
Kennedy,
Yep.
Eisenhower,
Yep.
Truman,
Correct. I wouldn't have lost yet. I would still be going right now.
before Truman.
Come on.
Roosevelt. Ooh. Hoover,
Yeah. I think I would have gotten the next 4, but I could get them transposed if I was not really, really careful.
Before Hoover.
Yeah.
Are we like Taft at this point?
Nope. You got 3 before Taft.
Wilson.
No.
No?
You got 2 before Wilson.
Oh, shit.
These are 2 that I think I would have gotten in reverse order. I think I would have lost here.
All right.
I would have gotten through Hoover for sure.
Okay.
But I would have had Harding and then Coolidge, and it's Coolidge and then Harding.
Oh, okay.
I would have gotten reversed.
Yeah,
So Coolidge, Harding,
I was out right there.
Wilson, Taft, Roosevelt, and that gets you through the century.
Yeah, now you're into the 1800s.
Yeah, and no chance. No shot in hell.
Isn't that funny? Because like Lincoln.
Yeah, I mean, I can. If you give
Johnson,
me a big board with
Lincoln,
their
Johnson,
years,
Grant. Who was after Grant?
I don't even know. That's what I'm saying. I would have really messed that up at that point. Rutherford Hayes. No shot. No, I'm not.
He was
that
a hell
good.
of a linebacker, Hayes.
He was. Yes.
Yeah.
And a runner. Yeah. I mean, no, because Lincoln, Johnson, Grant, Hayes, Garfield, Arthur, Cleveland, Harrison, Cleveland, McKinley, to finish the 1800s.
Oh wow.
Yeah. No shot.
All right, people want us to talk about depth charts and the defensive secondary. Got any big thoughts? I'm theoretic. I can't talk about the depth chart. It's top secret.
Even a lane.
The secondary, I think Ole Miss is going to be better. Got more bodies,
I
more
kind of
impactful
feel like that's the entire
players.
defense. Go, yeah, they're a little better. Right?
I think they're potentially a lot better. Some of the young kids will look really good in the spring. How that translates into the fall, I don't know. I'm always trying to be a little careful. Like, everyone's raving about Tashim Johnson, for example. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely looked good in the spring. How does that translate into the fall where you're going against somebody else?
Sure.
You're going against the same offense every day. And frankly, it was an offense that was pretty beaten up, and a lot of guys weren't playing. I mean, if you were to judge nothing but the spring, you'd be like, boy, Ole Miss is in trouble at quarterback.
Sure. Yeah.
And Ole Miss is not in trouble at quarterback.
No.
So I liked him. I think Prince
Gives them something for
gives
sure.
him another corner. I think Battle has a chance to be an NFL player.
Like I say, Battle really took a step there. I mean, because you got to remember, that's a dude, we talked about it last week, who's getting coached pre-snap. So just getting more acclimated makes him a really good option over there. I mean, he might be we do always do the buying stock thing. He might be where you buy all your stock, is Miles Battle.
They get a full season of Otis Reese, which I think is huge.
It's huge.
I'm really big on TJ Finley. I thought he made huge strides second half of last season.
AJ, yeah.
All right, what did I say, TJ?
Yeah.
I meant AJ. Yeah, guys. And then you have some depth they didn't have a year ago. They didn't have anybody last year at times.
We don't know what Springer looks like. We don't know what stuff looks like.
I mean, people rave about Springer, but you didn't see him in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's one of the reasons, no joke, it's one of the reasons that I don't do the count them down from number 100 or 80 or whatever number you choose. I don't feel like, I'm totally honest, I'll admit this right here on the live stream that's going to be recorded and released. I don't feel like I know football well enough to do that. And don't have nor does anyone else, the connections on the staff to get someone to sit down and break down players for me. That's not how this staff operates.
And as Ole Miss has seen plenty of seasons, what does that defensive front look like? What does the front seven do as far as getting any pressure to actually help the secondary?
Yeah,
because that's so critical here. I mean, what are you getting out of Sam Williams? What are you getting out of these different guys?
I didn't think Sam Williams was particularly good last season.
He wasn't. He's been in trouble. Like, it's just, who knows? I don't know.
I think they're better up front, but I still have concerns about the edge. Can they pressure the quarterback? Last season they really couldn't pressure the quarterback. Not certainly with their front three or front four, whatever.
I think you probably see a really good step out of Tavius Robinson in this year. I mean,
yeah. I think they're better at linebacker. Yeah, that's
so much of that counts on Chance Campbell. We'll see.
But look, Jacquez Jones is gone. He played a lot last season. Made a lot of tackles. Was a step slow a lot. They were really bad on defense. I've said this on a number of radio shows, and people are like, do you think Ole Miss will be better on defense? Yes. Yes. How much better? I don't know. That's the deal. If you came down and said, hey, they finished 50th in the country in total defense, I'm like, oh, my God, they have a chance to go 10-2. But if you came back and said, well, they were much better, but they're 75th, which would be jumping like 50 spots.
I mean, this has been my most frequent conversation in the offseason. How much better is the defense? And then what does it need to be to make for an elite team? And yeah, it doesn't have to go crazy. I mean, if you offered Lane Kiffin right now, hey, your defense is going to finish 59th nationally, they would take it.
Yeah.
Top 60. It's kind of that's my baseline a little bit. It's 60. I mean, we're talking still barely top half. I mean, it's not even nothing crazy.
No, but it keeps you in games.
And do you call some turnovers? Do you get some quick steals a little bit?
Can you get off the field?
Yeah. Or you just gut it on third down?
Yeah. Can you let your offense build leads? Is your offense ever able to really do what it wants to do? Because what he would like to do is go fast a lot. And there were times last season where that was just not a good idea.
It's impossible. With all respect to Wesley McGriff back in the day. He really hated and loved the stats of, hey, they defense ran 87 plays. Like,
yeah.
Our offense won't slow down. Stop for a second.
That's the thing. They've been so bad on defense so many years in a row that you're going to have to show me a little bit before I jump into the hype machine. And quite frankly, it's one of the things I like about this staff. They don't hype. I mean, they don't. You don't see the long interviews with the assistant coaches where they go through the depth chart and everyone's awesome.
Bigger, faster, stronger. We all had a great offseason.
Yeah. You just don't have that. I appreciate that. What some people accuse you of sometimes of laziness is not that. It's I know how this works. Everyone's hungry for football content in July. I get it. But come September, they're saying, but you wrote that. And I'm not doing it. So not previewing position groups without being able to talk to coaches, and this coaching staff's off limits. Mm-hmm. I think we'll get the coordinators on a media day, and that'll be that.
Yeah.
It's the Saban approach.
Only other news kind of coming out a little bit, Aaron Rodgers obviously did not retire. He announces he's back for his 17th season with the Packers, but still not really high on the management there in Wisconsin. Says, I just want to be involved in conversations that affect my ability to do my job. When asked if he has gotten any assurances that will happen, he said, I'm not sure at this point. Spoke at length about how he's been disappointed about veteran players the Packers have either released or not re-signed at various points of their career. In fact, he rattled off the names of nearly a dozen players returning to the blah, 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 blah during his press conference. Randall Cobb, who actually is returning this season to the Packers. From Charles Woodson to Julius Peppers to more. I wanted to help the organization maybe learn from some of the mistakes in the past and about the way some of the outgoing veterans were treated, and just the fact that we didn't retain a number of players that I felt were core players to our foundation, to our locker room, high-character guys. Says he still does not know what the future holds after this season for himself, but that he does have a beef with upper management. So,
can he get out after this year?
I don't see that in the story.
Okay. The other NFL story that's interesting is Deshaun Watson at Texans camp going through drills, and the Texans basically saying we're taking this one day at a time. I mean, he's got a lot of accusations against him. Right now, they're only accusations, but they're like serious, but they're real accusations. I mean, in terms of they're out there. Some of them are criminal complaints. Does he play?
As of now, yes. Right?
I don't know.
As of now.
Does he get punished?
Well, they would have already punished him, though. Because it has to move up a standard, is my point. Like, they're clearly going to allow him to be innocent until proven guilty. I mean, I'm not criticizing that, but that's clearly where they're at.
If you're the Texans, you're a nervous wreck, right? I mean,
your entire thing falls apart with one thing. Yeah. It takes any more elevation.
Because when you put him out there on the field on September the what would that be? The 12th.
Rightly
the
or
season.
wrongly, you are saying you believe him.
You are. When you put him under center as the face of your franchise.
Again, not saying you shouldn't, but just saying when you do.
No, absolutely. But when you do, whether you mean to or not, you are saying, hey, we've looked into this, and we don't believe it. We believe him. We don't believe the women. We believe him.
Mm-hmm. They're carrying 4 quarterbacks right now. Deshaun Watson, Tyrod Taylor, Jeff Driscoll, Davis Mills. The 4 quarterbacks for the Houston Texans. It'd be Tyrod's show, I guess.
Taylor's okay.
He's fine.
Yeah.
He's 11 years in the league.
Yeah. And you don't stay in the league that long unless
Tyrod's
you're okay.
hung around 11 years.
He's good. He's not elite by any stretch, but he's good. Better than Driscoll.
He's been around 6.
Yeah. Good citizen. Doesn't disrupt the locker room.
Didn't he finish at La Tech?
I think he did finish at Tech.
He still has Florida listed as his college on here, but I don't know what that means or doesn't mean. Tyrod, obviously, from Virginia Tech.
And who was the other guy?
Davis Mills, former quarterback at Stanford.
Oh, yeah, he's a rookie.
Yeah.
They drafted him this past year.
Yeah, I want to see what's Tyrod made in his career. Let's look it up.
$30 million?
Yeah, I'm looking and see if I can get a total. Let's see. Career earnings. You're going to go with 30? That's your guess?
Sure. Pays
to be in the NFL. Not counting this season's salary of, let's see, 2.5 plus a 2.5 signing bonus for 2021.
Okay.
His career earnings are $54 million.
Is that right? Good for him.
10 seasons, $54 million. Yeah.
Wow. $54 million to essentially be a career backup.
That cat made $16 million in 2018 for the Cleveland Browns.
How many starts does he have in his career?
Let's see. Back over here for that one. We're just talking at this point. Let's see. All right, Taylor. Reference games. He's played in 72 career games, but let's see how many starts. 47.
Oh, okay.
72 games, 47 starts.
So he started 3 seasons, essentially, of NFL.
He has completed 61% of his passes, 54 touchdowns, 20 interceptions.
Yeah. No, he's good. You don't stay in the league that long unless you have
more than a touchdown per start.
You can count on him. Not going to lead you to the Super Bowl, probably, but
he's all right.
They're glad to have him on their roster right now.
For a backup,
yeah,
you'll take that all day long. Because we have this conversation over and over again. There's only like 12 dudes who can actually play NFL quarterback effectively.
But if you're the Texans, you've got about 10 days before you've got to make a decision about who your quarterback is. Because if it's not going to be Deshaun Watson, if it's going to be Tyrod Taylor, for example, and you're going to start having to think about, hey, we got to get this Mills kid ready. You don't have time to be giving snaps in camp to Watson. And if it is going to be Watson, he's got to get the snaps, and you've got to feel really confident that you're not going to waste August on him.
God, I kind of forgot about that. Tunsil being there. It's a train wreck organization right now.
Yeah, if I'm Laramie, I'm asking out again.
He's
I know he's
money.
making a fortune, but
I mean, playing offensive line there is just like playing fire drill. I mean, he's like hitting his dude and then worried about the guard over here. I mean, it's like he's got to be in 8 places at once. I mean, they're god awful. Juan in our thread said he actually won a fantasy league with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback a few years ago.
Oh wow!
Yeah, there you go. Actually, did I see that he was diagnosed with COVID today? No, Lamar Jackson. Sorry, got him mixed up. Lamar Jackson test positive today.
Christian Yelich tested positive.
Did he?
He's vaccinated.
Reggie Bush will not get his Heisman back. They
Saw
made that decision. Just kind of looking through headlines here as we get done. U.S. leading the medal count, 31-27 over China, 23 for the Russians, and obviously the Americans will add to their total soon because track gets started here before long.
This isn't even a hot take on Simone. It's just my reaction today to all of it.
Okay.
When you do what she does, if you're not mentally sharp, you could really get hurt.
Well, 100%.
And so the people that are dogging her, I can't stand that. Like, that drives me crazy. The people that are calling her a quitter, I don't think she's a quitter at all. On the flip side, while it is absolutely courageous and stuff, I don't know that this adds anything more or detracts from her legacy. I don't think it changes her legacy.
No, it puts it neutral.
There are people that are trying to make this into, she's the great American hero because of this. And I think this is revelatory of her humanity.
Well, that's what's real was the word that kept coming to mind. Yeah. She's real.
She's a human being. I mean, you watch her do the thing and you're like, oh my God. I mean, I watched the other night. I mean, she's literally, she looks like she's 15 feet in the air. And you're like, so if something's going on in her mind that prevents her from being sharp and confident.
And she puts so much pressure on herself.
Yes. And maybe she's just melted down a little bit.
But I mean, yeah, your mind is not clear, and you're going, hey, I've got to hit this ball. I mean, you could break your neck. I mean,
you get hurt. And so I have nothing but respect for that. And the people that ripped her, I'm like, man, you must be nice to never have any mental issues. Mm-hmm. It must be nice to just have supreme confidence at all times. I can't relate. I mean, I had to go get help years ago.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't know that it vaults her to some esteemed status. Ask Chris Bryant about it, the Cubs third baseman or outfielder, whatever it is that he is for the next 24 hours. And, you know, he was like, yeah, he battles some of that stuff, and sometimes it gets in your head, and sometimes you got to get away from it, and sometimes in the heat of the moment you can't get away from it. Like he was saying, you know, baseball's, as you know, is a really mental game. And sometimes even when you're a former MVP like he is, sometimes you suck. And when you suck, it gets really mental, and you have to figure out ways to get away from it. And sometimes that includes taking a couple of days off. Chris Bryant says he gets away from it by having chocolate cake.
Oh, really?
He'll go have chocolate cake.
I get that.
I kind of get it.
Yeah, that's fine. He'll work it all.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he has no body fat, so obviously he can do what he wants.
The interesting part of the Biles thing, she also this morning, she pulled out of the individual all-around final. It's what's worrisome a little bit for her sake is that it wasn't this just daily blip. You know what I mean? That like, okay, let me kind of refocus. Let me get through this, and I'll come back for the all-around tomorrow, and then I'll do the individual. I mean, she can come back tomorrow. I don't know. But that it's a prolonged thing more than that just one day is what is somewhat concerning and interesting to me. Because when I first saw it yesterday morning, I thought, okay, if it really is not physical, it's probably a one-day deal. Kind of in my head, I'd go, okay, they'll, you know, maybe she's having a panic attack. I don't know. Like, you can calm down and you whatever. And I know she's been dealing with some personal stuff the last few weeks, but it all coming to head on the day of the team final is interesting. I don't know really what it means, what it doesn't mean, but it's interesting to me.
Was it the Raiders that had a center that, like, the night before the Super Bowl just snapped and disappeared?
Right. Yeah, it was an offensive lineman at least. I don't remember what position. Yeah, that's right. That was somebody.
It was a Falcons player got arrested.
I don't remember.
Something happened.
I don't remember that.
So where Anthony Rizzo's father was at Wrigley last night, walked out thanking all of the like ushers and stuff for all they've done.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that kind of hit me in the feels.
Yeah, that's not a good.
No, I mean,
where's he headed?
The rumor is Boston.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's palatable for you.
Yeah, I mean,
that's fine.
I'm fine. I mean,
he's not putting like barley on his uniform. I mean, he'll be all right. Brewers.
Yeah, as long as it's, I know about the barley. I was trying to think with what would hurt worse, the barley or the birds, and it's the birds.
No, the birds would hurt more.
Yeah.
Milwaukee's new money in this thing. This isn't that's not.
Chris Bryant can't go to the Cardinals. That's more.
He knows he can't.
I think it's more than I can handle emotionally. I don't think I could watch that anymore. That might be the end of my baseballing.
Yeah. So
I don't know. Just
okay.
End of an era.
Yeah.
Draft tomorrow.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. There's a Chasing the Ring up if you're interested. We talked about the draft. A lot of activity expected at the top of the NBA draft tomorrow. The Pistons have the first pick. Rockets have the second pick. And then I think most people expect the potential for fireworks at number 3 with Cleveland. Cleveland's got the third pick. They want to get away from Kevin Love's contract. They're willing to move Colin Sexton. There's talks of a blockbuster, so a lot of stuff could happen. If you're into the NBA tomorrow night, could be a pretty interesting night.
Might talk a little more about that tomorrow for the show. Appreciate Jason Suchomel today, Kerry Murdoch tomorrow, and more as we continue to talk East expansion talk as we move forward to more news in that regard. And football season, camp starting before two terrible.
Have you heard a date
I
yet?
have not. I mean, I'm playing off the 5th or 6th, but I don't know.
Yeah, the date I heard was reporting on the 5th or 6th, and I think practice starts on the 7th because Ole Miss plays on a Monday.
Right.
So they're going to start 2 days
it's
later.
so many days back from your opener.
Yeah, you get so many days back from the opener to get in. I think it's 28 practices.
Okay.
So you build in like 3 days off.
Okay. So more tomorrow, and appreciate all the questions in the stream, those listening elsewhere, and we'll talk to you again very soon.